free for a limited time. Every cinematic episode like this one is accompanied by a premium Roundtable review episode. The hosts take you behind the scenes and deeper into the investigation. Subscribe now. YouShouldNotKnowThis.org.
It is always, I can tell you tonight, experience democracy is beginning to take root in El Salvador.
I've got plenty of aptitude for the thrill.
You should not know this.
I'll do it all for you. Yes, I need a job.
But they're too late.
Ted Braden was brazen, by all accounts. You're left weighing the evidence. What does it tell you? There are accusations, armed robbery to automobile theft, weapons charges to counterfeiting, followed by an unexplained federal escort out of jail. There are accounts of outrageous behavior during the Vietnam War. Then, allegations of taking the life of a friendly soldier. The consequences vanished in the jungle. A pattern of phantom protection tapped you on the shoulder. Now, it smacks you on the forehead.
You should not know this. This is an active investigation built on public records, contemporaneous reporting, and first-hand interviews. The accused are presumed innocent until proven guilty. Some matters remain unresolved, and uncertainty is clearly stated. Some names have been changed, and graphic detail has been withheld. Discretion advised.
They say it takes 30 days to make or break a habit. After 2 years in Vietnam, Ted Braden had plenty of time to do that. 23 months in the woods. That's how they put it.
Ted was in Vietnam for 23 months straight, which is a long, long time. I think it's even called an endurance record. The average duration for a normal soldier was about 12 to 13 months, was considered what's called a single tour.
You know, he obviously decided that he needed to get out of there. We know that. There's no way that it wouldn't have affected him mentally. I mean, the things that we do know that he did over there. Possibly physically as well.
Ted was living in Vietnam for 23 months. After a while, that would wear on a person and reframe how they see the world. Generally, there are several mental health disorders associated with extended time in the field. PTSD, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and we know Ted had at least one of these, and possibly more.
If you think the soldiers were clamoring to get out of Vietnam in the 1960s, you're right. If you think Ted Braden was clamoring to leave for the same reason, you're very wrong. Ted Braden can be explained as an outlier. That had been true since 1944. Lying about his age to join the U.S. Army and World War II. An outlier in more ways than one.
Some people claim that Ted Braden had a secret death wish because he was constantly putting himself in harm's way. He would always get away with it. He literally operated in that manner. He just had no fear whatsoever.
You can't confirm that Ted Braden had a death wish. But you can confirm he had a grudge.
Ted had a disdain for any officer, especially if they disagreed with him. He did not really care if they outranked him. He would still want to engage them and prove to them that he was right by means of either a physical confrontation or just a really bad verbal argument. He just would argue till the end of time if he felt a different way about something.
Ted was older than most of his fellow soldiers. That meant something to the Army. You remember Al Keller.
Senior NCOs were running the teams. They didn't want to take some young guy out unless he was proven. How can you get proven? But once you've got your first mission in, they didn't want to turn it off.
The Army didn't want to turn Ted off. The younger guys wanted to make it home. Ted wanted to make progress. Financially. Ted Braden liked money. We all like money. But Ted might have liked it more. Evidence for Ted's money love goes way back. College. He studied law, then business. None of that worked for Ted. On to gambling, where the odds are against you. Later, the Air Force. Flying made sense and made money. It's easy for Air Force pilots to become airline pilots. Big paychecks, pensions, fancy uniforms. It was the golden age of air travel, after all. But piloting wasn't in the cards. Death-defying Rambo work was all Ted had.
Being a paratrooper is extremely hard on the body. That's why most people that qualify for it, they're young when they do this, and they need to be, because you're going through rigorous training. Number one, the force of the wind as you're in a free fall. Landing is very hard. Even if you land correctly, it's a lot of harsh impact on your body, especially when you're engaging in halo style that Ted Braden loved to engage in. You were pulling the ripcord sometimes under 1,000 feet, which is insanity, but you're hitting the ground even harder because your parachute has had less time to fully start slowing you down. So in many cases, you're hitting the ground hard. In Vietnam, you would land in triple canopy jungles and land in trees. You can imagine the pain involved in that. And if your parachute got hung up in a tree and you were hung up in that tree, you were a sitting duck for the enemy.
Ted was getting older. He had no career to fall back on. And he knew it. Ted Braden had a problem with the Army, with money, with the Army's money. So, the Army had a problem too.
He was good in the woods, I think reckless at times.
There's your dilemma. Ted was extremely effective and extremely dangerous. It's easy to look the other way when someone keeps delivering, until they become too dangerous.
We must seek to deliver ourselves from this twisting, torturing evil. We must save our nation from decay. We must make our land, the land of the free, a safe home. Oh God, deliver us, Americans, from evil.
Joseph Gato, the Chicken Hill Bandit. Like Ted, he was accused of taking a life. One of Gato's early crimes was also a capital offense. He left his army unit, didn't come back. That is desertion. And it's another accusation he shares with Ted Braden.
At some point in December of 1966, Ted Braden's wanting to extend his tour in Vietnam, but it's decided that they're not going to allow him to do that. And he went on his last mission with only a single sidearm, which is very unusual, especially for a guy like Ted Braden. He was already indicating that his time in Vietnam was short, and he simply decides to leave Vietnam. He doesn't officially tell anyone above him. He just decides to get up and leave. And this is because he's only there for the money that he can make by being in the Army. And he learns that he can make a lot more money by becoming a mercenary. And he thinks that sounds good to him. It's all about money. So he simply decides to ball it up and leave Vietnam and go search for better fortunes.
Caught, Ted was facing capital punishment. Not a light decision. He wasn't coming back like before.
Desertion in the military was always looked down upon severely. It started with the Civil War, where the punishment would be actual hanging. If they didn't make an example of somebody, maybe a whole unit could wind up deserting. It was a very bad crime, and it just didn't happen very often.
Ted was fearless in a certain respect, and I think he probably thought, I'm going to get away with this. And if I don't get away with it, then I'll get out of the situation. You know, there was a real risk here, a real risk of being probably in prison for a very long time. I don't think that probably even crossed his mind. I'm pretty certain he thought to himself, I'm going to get away with this.
It's the U.S. government after you. It's just a matter of time before you're going to get caught. It's not as if he was leaving to go live some quiet suburban life. He was leaving to go do a similar line of work, just as dangerous as what he had been doing, just for higher pay. So the risk-reward there, it doesn't seem like a very good trade-off.
Whatever the truth, Ted Braden was gone.
Desertion during the Vietnam War was not very common. If you were overseas, it would be very difficult to get back undetected.
That's a very good point, though. It never really occurred to me. I've always considered Ted as being someone who was a planner. He obviously decided one day, I'm leaving. How are you going to get home? You know, a flight somewhere. Who did he organise that with?
He was in his mid to late 30s at this point. I'm sure his body is experiencing wear and tear, and I doubt he was thinking too much into the future, because he had to have known he couldn't just fight like this forever.
He was absolutely planning it out. He was a planner. If more money was involved, that was his primary driver, and that's all he really cared about, is future money-making opportunities, especially if that money was ill-gotten.
Frank from Schaefer's Lounge mentioned that Ted was hunched over.
When Braden's in Vietnam, he's already a very old man. He's 36, 37 years old, well above the average age of a guy in Special Forces, which was roughly 21, 22 years old. Constant impacts of landing, I think, could have contributed to him being not being able to stand up straight all the time.
911. It's a very easy number to remember. That is the amount of jumps that we know that Ted did in his lifetime. I'm sure there was a lot more. Obviously, sometimes in the night time, sometimes in the middle of battle, hitting the ground that many times. We know for a fact that Ted took Benzedrine. Some people would take more Benzedrine than usual as a painkiller. The normal use of Benzedrine in most people is to keep you awake. So maybe he did have physical difficulties. I think it was probably something that happened after he got back from Vietnam. Something possibly happened between 1967, 68 and 1982. Maybe an accident. A truck accident. Maybe it was a skydiving accident. You could hypothesize that something happened in that period of time.
See the police reports, court files, and redactions when you subscribe. You should not know this.org.
Including the extreme left.
A fugitive. Ted Braden was a fugitive. He hopped on an airplane and left Vietnam during the war. The Army doesn't just let that go.
He would have probably been under the assumption, as well as anyone, that he would most likely be tracked down by the military itself, military intelligence, the CIA. CIA is going to want to find him the quickest. He has knowledge that they don't want to get out. He knew everything going on in Southeast Asia, no matter how illegal or immoral they were.
If they wanted to find Ted, they'd have to look not in Ohio, Pennsylvania, not in a jail or a bar, not anywhere in Asia, in Africa. Mercenaries fight for the highest bidder. Mercenaries like Ted Braden, anyway. And Ted Braden liked high bidders. The high bidder in this case happened to be a dictator named Mobutu, and a mercenary group called 5 Commando in the Congo.
A regular soldier is basically fighting for country, or they were drafted, or what's called a conscript. In many cases, they are fighting for their country. They're fighting for glory, pride. They're fighting for what they believe in. A mercenary is literally paid to fight. They don't fight for glory. They weren't drafted. They literally fight for the highest bidder. Basically, professional fighters. They don't have an allegiance to a country or a president or a leader. Their allegiance is to themselves and their pocketbook.
Being a fugitive and all, Ted tried to stay under the radar, and even off the radar.
Ted would use the alias of a gentleman with the surname Horner that was a Canadian citizen who was killed in a training exercise when a mortar round exploded prematurely, taking his life, and Ted had firsthand knowledge of that. So he thought that using that gentleman's name would be handy to him in his post-desertion life.
That's a pretty extreme thing to do. I mean, I'd hate to say a man without any scruples, but it does seem to be heading that way. I suppose he thought to himself, well, he's not going to be using that name anymore. Why don't I?
Nothing is ever black and white with Ted Braden. He trades one war for another and doubles his money. The price for Ted Braden's newfound lucrative mercenary career could be his life. Ted did go down, but it wasn't in combat. They got him.
They found Braden in very short order, and they apprehended him, interrogated him, and whisked him back to the States.
A fugitive caught by the CIA, facing horrific consequences.
He knew he was going to be earning more money. He was probably very frustrated that he just landed and was caught.
I just imagine he had to know that it would eventually catch up to him. I just don't think he was thinking super long term in this situation.
Facing capital punishment, Ted was flown to the United States. Another jail cell in a facility that dwarfs the Erie County Jail. This time, a huge American military base.
Fort Dix is a large army base in New Jersey. And within Fort Dix, they have a stockade where they hold prisoners, basically the military's version of jail. That's where Braden's going to be held for a while until he faces a court-martial.
And Drew found the man who was in charge of Ted at that time.
Captain Hank Birch, his primary duty at the time in 1967 was oversee the captives in the stockade. His entire life for decades after, dedicated a lot of his free time to trying to learn more about Ted Braden.
Almost immediately, Captain Birch knew something was unusual.
Birch begins to notice Braden is getting special treatment. He has a television set in his jail cell in 1967. That's absolutely unheard of. Braden was getting filtered cigars, which are strictly forbidden. Ted Braden made the comment to Hank Birch. He said, "Don't worry, sir, this is all going to work out."
So he was granted all these privileges, even against stockade policy. It almost seems like he was being held more as just a bureaucratic formality.
everything is going to be all right. Why is everything going to be all right? Who does Ted Braden know?
And all of this is familiar. Ted Braden, in a jail cell, charged, awaiting trial. Last time, the trial never came. In 1982, Ted Braden was locked up in the Erie County Jail. He was there for 2 months before it became, in the words of Trooper Dale Meyer, unusual. 15 years earlier, in the Fort Dick Stockade, it was unusual from the get-go. With special privileges for no apparent reason, Ted Braden waited. Then the phone rang.
The day finally comes for Ted Braden to be court-martialed. The Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army makes a phone call to intervene on his behalf, and the court-martial winds up not happening at all.
This time, it might be a little too unusual.
And that reason is there are not enough MPs on base to secure the courtroom. Hank Birch thought that was just a contrived excuse because he saw Fort Dix literally crawling with MPs. So he immediately knew someone was looking after him. Yet again.
Not only was Ted's life spared, his afternoon was spared.
Braden is offered a deal where he can no longer re-enlist into the military, and for that he will be given a discharge under honorable conditions, which is just a step below an honorable discharge. That was the deal that he agreed to.
Of course, it can't be that clean, cut and dry.
When this is first explained to him, he rejects the deal. He will not accept the deal until he's given his special wristwatch that we don't know much about. We, to this day, can only speculate what that watch may have been or what it could do.
Ted Braden walked free again, despite trying to argue against it. Al knows.
Ted Braden was a strange guy in many ways.
There it is. Another peek at Ted Braden's possible protection pattern. Thing is, only one group can save you from desertion. And if that group saved Ted, it means Ted Braden was never just a soldier.
Yeah, the Congo is very interesting. There's obviously a monetary reason for going there.
And he ended up falling in with a faction supporting the Mobutu regime. For some context, this guy was absolutely horrific. Total dictator, human rights violations all over the place, put his country in economic ruin. He had an elite security force like all the best dictators out there. And he had no qualms about joining up with them and fighting for his cause because it was just about money for Ted.
Fort Dix is a fascinating story within a story. Ted Braden is held captive there in solitary confinement for 123 days, and the only person he could interact with was Hank Birch. One thing that he had to agree to, other than not rejoining the military, was not to divulge anything he knew about operations in Southeast Asia. Of course, they didn't want that getting out because the U.S. government was, doing a lot of things that the public just wouldn't understand, how the military looked at it, like making dirty deals with people in other governments. And if you do our dirty work, we'll help you with this. So that was all the more reason to always know where he was.
Your support will bring to light the complete life of Ted Braden. Subscribe at youshouldnotknowthis.org.
Whatever was happening behind the scenes, it's hard to see. Whatever shielded Ted Braden from unavoidable consequences, it's harder to unsee. There are too many patterns to ignore.
Well, we do know at this point that Ted was part of MACV-SOG, which was a covert operation in itself. Ted seemed to be even more covert. He would go off to meetings in Saigon. Ted would say, I'm going here, and, if you see me, you don't know me. Who is he working for? We can only assume that he was meeting the men in ties, I suppose you'd want to say, in Saigon. What were these meetings involving?
Even the mighty must fall, as they say.
He was more Black Ops than the Black Ops.
At some point in time,
he obviously knew a lot of things.
Ted was a very competent and trusted man, it seems.
A man that knows a lot of things is a dangerous man.
To just a common criminal pissing his pants on the side of the highway. Covert CIA operative.
He was the CIA.
We're talking about the polite turnpike drunk here. The guy Schaefer's Lounge regulars would deposit in a booth for the night after he had half a dozen too many. Ted Braden was an enigma, or something.
The CIA, they were just muscle-bound by too much money and too much bureaucracy. A lot of people with great educations trying to do things rather than getting the people that could do things to take charge. That's the curse of government.
There were signs. If Ted Braden was connected to U.S. intelligence, the men around him would have noticed. And they did.
He would disappear for, periods of time and come on back. When he disappeared, he was in the sport jacket. He had his passport with him. Ted was CIA.
Ted Braden seems to be cut from the cloth of somebody that would be a CIA operator. It's easy to envision him doing all kinds of crazy things.
There are rumors that certain people had special passports.
Was he information gathering?
On the drop of a dime, he could be in one country and then in the next.
Was he reporting to other CIA officers?
And I think he could be somewhere and back.
He'd basically leave in civilian clothes, so it all seems kind of strange.
Before you even know it.
If CIA connections explain Ted Braden's frequent escape from consequences, the question is, how? One name might be the answer.
General Jack K. Singlob. Sometime in the early 1960s, when Ted Braden is stationed in Germany as part of the 8th Division Golden Arrows sport competition parachute team, he runs into Singlob, who was also in World War II, and they kind of forged a friendship. Of course, General Singlob was part of what was called the OSS, which was the predecessor to the CIA. So in that vein, Singlob was basically the co-founder of the CIA.
Yeah, you could hypothesize that the gentleman who essentially created and was the head of the CIA, they obviously were buddies. They had a lot of things in common and became quite friendly. Ted didn't make a lot of friends, but we do get the feeling that he considered Singlob a reasonably close friend. That could be a reason for protection. It's just a wave of a wand, and it's let him off, and that would not be a major issue. Going back to the Fort Dick story, I don't know whether that would be the reason why he was released, but it does seem to look that way.
If somebody had the means to protect Ted and had the personal reasons to do so, it would have been Singlob.
All a theory. You can't FOIA request that kind of thing to confirm. But the Singlob theory is, for now, impossible to rule out. Why would the CIA want a guy like Ted Braden?
Fearless.
He seems to be a bit of a chameleon.
He could get stuff done.
There does seem to be an element of disguise in his life.
Disciplined in some ways.
The fact that he could keep a secret.
And he knew how to keep his mouth shut.
I'm sure the CIA absolutely loved that.
Ted was skilled and volatile.
Violent.
Couldn't keep control.
Pretty sloppy at times.
Did he take orders very well?
Put operations at risk.
A little bit of a temper.
Quite a temper.
I do get the feeling he was quite short to anger.
We've been told even the Army didn't know who Ted was working for. Now, we've learned the Army kneecapped his career. Kicked out. Banned from joining again. He was almost 40 years old when he walked out of Fort Dix. It was now or never for Ted. A free man. The military behind him. Ted left for San Francisco. It was late 1967, just after the summer of love. I know. And Ted Braden was not on vacation.
Ramparts magazine was something I would call counterculture at the time. Anti-Vietnam War, of course. Very progressive, very...
Ramparts magazine. They covered politics, culture, celebrities. In October 1967, they covered John Lennon and Ted Braden. 250,000 readers. Hundreds of thousands of good, average, everyday people. A few biker gangs. Some organized crime members. And maybe the occasional warlord. Ramparts was popular. Ted didn't use it to tell his side of the story. He didn't appeal to the average, normal folks. Instead, Ted used his Ramparts magazine interview to find a job. In his own words, Ted wrote,
"Mercenary soldier, 14 years military service, available for position immediately. Qualifications: 101st Airborne Division, World War II, Master Parachutist, 911 log jumps, including 695 free falls, ex-lieutenant and ex-sergeant, U.S. Army. Operated in 4 countries in Southeast Asia and 2 in Africa. Experienced in use of U.S. weapons, demolitions, sabotage, infiltration, specialty training, and directing hunter-killer teams. 23 months of jungle operations in and out of Vietnam, willing to organize and or direct insurgency or counterinsurgency teams, whichever is appropriate to non-CIA supported employer. References can be checked with U.S. Army, U.S. Special Forces, CIA, and 5 Commando, Congo. Other talents by confidential inquiry only. Absolute loyalty guaranteed to highest bidder. Contact Ted B. Braden.
Ted's dead freaking serious. That's a resume. In a magazine. Impressive to the biker gang, mafia, warlord faction. Ted's target demographic. If there was any question how Ted handled his Army discharge, this is a pretty clear answer.
I mean, that is an incredible list of skills.
Ted clearly wasn't ready to quit. He's trying to bounce back, still in the mindset of a mercenary. I think at this point he was just trying to find any way he could use his skill set to make some more money.
I'm very curious to who read that advert and who answered the advert, if anybody did answer it.
Having his resume published in a magazine was the best way to get the word out, given the odd type of job he was seeking.
It was supposed to be an interview, a feature, and it was, after the resume. Ted wrote in his own words, and what he wrote is revealing.
I was in the business of hunting people, and when necessary, and sometime when it wasn't, of killing them. That's all right, but it's risky and very often dirty, sweaty work.
Matter of fact, something your grandmother would say about gardening. Dirty, sweaty work. That's the problem with hunting people, according to Ted Braden. Even the Ramparts journalist interviewing Ted picked up on his unusual qualities. He wrote,
Braden is among those professionals who appear to have a secret death wish, coupled with well-trained instincts for survival. He continually places himself in unnecessary danger, but always manages to get away with it.
Ted openly offered insight into his own motivations.
The mercenaries, I was told, made at least twice as much, more for an officer, with even better opportunities to make $1 on the side. I was already a mercenary, but a poorly paid one.
Ted could not have been more clear.
Like those in Special Forces who have volunteered for their 4th and 5th tours in Vietnam, I didn't extend my tour for glory, honor, country, only for money. I didn't know who or why the mercenaries were fighting, but that's of little consequence to a professional.
And then Ted confirms something.
After first having made me sign a sworn statement that I would not divulge the information I have about CIA and Special Forces operations in Southeast Asia, I was given a discharge under honorable conditions.
Ted Braden, in his own words, claims to have worked for the CIA, the agency who possibly saved his hide at Fort Dix. But Ted wasn't feeling it.
For this, I am supposed to be eternally grateful. Big deal.
So much for the summer of love. If Ted Braden was lying in Ramparts magazine, it's reckless. If Ted was telling the truth in Ramparts magazine, it's explosive.
Did Ted want to be famous? I don't know. To give such a long interview and give so much information, so much of that information that he gave was not necessary for his resume. It was not needed. In fact, some of it probably made him look bad, but he said it anyway. And I do think that he wanted to be known and maybe glorified in a way for all of the crazy work that he'd done in Vietnam and elsewhere.
Surprised that Ted was in the magazine, an anti-war magazine. It was a strange magazine, I think, for him to be involved with, but, it was basically the first part of the text. It is an advert for his skills. It's, I can do this, I can do whatever you want. And the line about loyalty to the highest bidder, that always makes me chuckle. Did anyone actually read the magazine and look at the article and think, wow, I could do with a guy like this? Highly possible.
One of the most interesting things to me in the Ramparts article is it specifically says Mac v. SOG, which was a covert unit. You didn't even speak of it. It didn't exist. It was literally a ghost unit. But the magazine clearly just goes ahead and says the name. So that is really mind-blowing that it just throws the name right out there in 1967. And it's the most covert unit we had in Vietnam. And they clearly name it right there in Ramparts in 67.
I was just super surprised how much of Ted's personal background he was willing to have published in Ramparts. The level of detail as to everything he'd done, the names he dropped, he exposed others. It's one of those rare examples where Ted was not tight-lipped and he let a lot out there.
To answer this advert and employ Ted Braden with all the skills that he's got, you're going to have to pay some serious money. Whether that Rampart advert was ever answered or not, I don't think we'll ever know.
They could not have been happy about this whatsoever when this article came out. I could just see them probably wanting to extinguish Braden. They wouldn't let him rejoin the army, and I think he had a lot of resentment towards that and blamed the CIA for it. I'm sure he enjoyed exposing the CIA.
You should not know this is not an accusation, nor is it an attempt to reframe, glorify, or sensationalize. It is the newly discovered documentation of one man's remarkable, not honorable, life by definition. There are people who experience Ted Braden in ways documents cannot. If you knew Ted, please reach out to the investigation, publicly or privately, on the record or off. Make contact at youshouldnotknowthis.org.
El Salvador is nearer to Texas than Texas is to Massachusetts.
It would be a relief if the Ted Braden riddle was solved. But the CIA doesn't pull you out of jail without strings attached. And it doesn't do cross-country crime sprees. Like Ted Braden's about to do.
You should not know this, but they're too late.